Good morning, my name is Edward Young. In September of 2008, I, along with my family, hired Mr. Michael Maggiano's law firm to represent us in a case against the state of North Carolina. Over the course of 2008 to 2014, we had to hire co-counsel down in North Carolina. Mr. Michael Maggiano, through his professionalism and through his knowledge and through his contacts of attorneys all over the country, we hired co-counsel Chet Rabon down in North Carolina. Over the course of 7 years, multiple depositions were held. Now, one of the things that Mr. Maggiano does in his law firm is he incorporates, in a deposition, he incorporates the use of a videographer. And to me, that's important because not only are you able to memorialize, you're actually able to videotape the emotion of the person being deposed. And I believe that's very important if you go to trial and you're in a court of law, that you're actually able to put on the screen in a courtroom a live video of a deposition that was taken in the past. I believe that's very important, and that played a very important aspect in our case. At trial, one of the people involved in the lawsuit for the state of North Carolina was deposed, and when it came time to trial, he could not appear in trial. So the only thing we had to go back on was the actual deposition of this individual. And if we didn't use a videographer, if Mr. Maggiano did not hire a videographer, all we would have is copies on paper of what was actually said during that deposition. And when I tell you that versus actually playing the video deposition at trial in front of the judge spoke volumes and was way more important than actually reading it on paper. Because a lot of times people perceive differently when they read things on paper versus when they're actually seeing it. I can tell you that his staff, I believe, is the backbone of his office. I have called his staff in his office multiple times. They always answer the phone. They always handle whatever I need diligently and quick. I can tell you that a lot of times it's very difficult to contacting attorneys. That everyone knows that when you hire an attorney, a lot of times one of the most difficult things is they don't return your phone calls. They're not available. Their staff always says they're busy. I can tell you that Mr. Michael Maggiano, every time I have called him, he has either answered his cell phone or within 20 minutes I get a phone call back. And I was very surprised and very shocked when I started receiving that treatment from Mr. Maggiano, because I have dealt with attorneys in the past, and never have I dealt with an attorney who was that professional and who was that courteous to provide me with their cell phone number, and also who contacted me back personally himself, not an assistant, not somebody else in the office, but personally himself, and was there to answer my questions. I can tell you that any emails I ever sent him, he was constantly sending them back from his iPhone, cell phone, his computer. He's just extremely professional, and he's there for you anytime you need him. I can tell you that we were the first case to actually change law in the state of North Carolina, and case law has been changed in North Carolina, and due to Mr. Maggiano's preparation for this case, I can't tell you how many times he personally got on a plane, flew down to the state of North Carolina to appear for court depositions, at trial, to meet with co-counsel. He spent hours away from his family down in another state, and just totally practicing on my case, reviewing our case, and making sure that everything was done from start to finish. I can tell you that Mr. Maggiano keeps a small caseload himself, and I think that's very important. And one of the important reasons why why he does keep a small caseload is so that he can pay total attention to the cases that he takes. So I can tell you that if you are fortunate enough for him to take your case, well then I believe, in my opinion, you've struck gold, simply because of the fact that he does not take on a large caseload. So the cases that he does take on, if you're one of them, he will dedicate 100% of his efforts towards your case.